That brings us up to the Mexica, or the Aztec. Aztec is the name that the Spanish gave to the Mexica, which is what they called themselves, hence the name Mexico. But the Aztec refers to the kind of mythical homeland of the Mexica themselves. So the Aztec, or the Mexica, are one of several migrant groups that were in the Gran Chichimec area, which is this desert area in northern Mexico. So we have like the Chichimeca, the Tepanecs, the Alcahua, and the Mexica are all part of this kind of generalized wandering folks in the north. And they're generally, when people talk about the Chichimeca, they're actually kind of lumping all of these folks together. Mexica's origin myth starts at a place called Aztlan, which was an island somewhere in the north, but nobody knows for sure where this was. It hasn't been identified archaeologically. And this island, the place of cranes, their god Huitzilopochtli told them to leave the island and to look for an eagle and sitting on a cactus. So you can see that here. It's actually still on the Mexican flag today. So the Aztec wandered for years and eventually found their way to the Valley of Mexico, where they hired themselves out as mercenaries. Now, during this period of wandering, they'd actually done quite a bit of fighting with other peoples, but also among themselves, so they were really pretty fierce warriors, hence the ability to hire themselves out as mercenaries. That didn't make them very popular in the region. Again, there's already all this infighting, so why do we need another group coming in? But again, since they could fight well, at least one king welcomed them, and that was the king of the territory of Culha, and the Aztec then served him for a number of years. At some point in the Aztec tenure of Culha, they asked the king for his daughter to marry their patron god Huitzilopochtli. So sit back and think about this for a second. How would a human woman marry a deity? If you said sacrifice, you are correct. The Aztecs sacrificed the girl, and they flayed her, which means they skinned her, and then a priest actually wore her skin. So this particular ceramic statue here is of the god Xipe Totec, who's also called the flayed god. So you can kind of get an idea of how the skin would have been worn. You can see the extra hand hanging down here, and so forth. So the Aztec have a great big ceremony kind of celebrating this union. The king of Culha is there. Imagine you're sitting there getting ready to feast, and you look across the room and there's a priest wearing the skin of your daughter. Many fathers would get upset about that, and this particular father did, and he ran the Aztec out of his territory. They eventually make their way to Lake Texcoco, where they see the eagle sitting on a cactus, so they know that this is where they're supposed to build their city. And so they established Tenochtitlan, still working as mercenaries because that's how they're getting what they need to build their particular city. At this point, though, they're hiring themselves out to the Tepanec. And they get to claim a lot of the booty, and this, again, is how they have the funds to establish this city. So Tenochtitlan literally translates into the place of the fruit of the prickly pear cactus. Much easier to say Tenochtitlan. Some people have suggested, you can see it here on the lake, in the middle of Lake Texcoco. Some people have suggested that Tenochtitlan was designed to be representative of the mythic Tolan. Again, a hypothesis. We have identified about 80 barrios in Tenochtitlan itself. Most of the 125,000 inhabitants lived in single-story adobe houses. The city center itself was enclosed by a wall, so you can kind of see it here. This is actually Spanish drawing, not to scale. So you have this enclosed area. There are about 80 structures within the enclosure itself, including temples, priests' dorms, schools for the children of nobles, ball courts, stages where dances were actually held or performed, and clubhouses for warriors. So again, warrior society, warriors really high status in this particular society. We have the Templo Mayor, which is the primary worship place. So you can see quite a big area, open area here. Shoot, let's go back, where people could have congregated. This is a reconstruction. Part of the problem of reconstructing Tenochtitlan is that it's buried underneath Mexico City because the Spanish filled in the lake and just built stuff on top of it. Again, that's another way to assert your dominance over a conquered group of people. But here you can see some of the ruins in the middle of Mexico City, and this is actually the ruins of the Templo Mayor. This is a twin temple complex. You can see the two temples up here. One is dedicated to the rain deity, which also some say was also the warrior deity, Tlaloc, and to their patron deity, Huitzilopochtli. They found over 7,000 artifacts when they were doing this particular excavation. Some of them were sacrificial victims. Now, attached to Tenochtitlan is an area called Tlatelolco, and this was a marketplace. So the Aztec actually established the first market economy in the New World, and their currency was the cacao bean. And they've actually found in the archaeological record here forged, or what's the word I'm looking for? Well, anyways, fake cacao beans, so faked currency, where they would find the cacao shell or hull stuffed with dirt. So I guess if you got caught with those fake currencies, you could get executed. So the Aztec didn't have a lot of patience with people who didn't conform to the norms of the society. Now, one of the ways that the Aztec gained power is early on they set up what's called the Triple Alliance with the folks at Texcoco on the east and Tlacopan on the west. They intermarried into the ruling families here as a way to establish their connection to the Toltec, because all of the rulers in this area at this time could trace their ancestry back to the Toltecs, so back to Tula. Well, the Aztec could do that coming from the north, so they married into these families so they could legitimize their right to rule. With these two cities, they continued their quest for dominance, eventually gaining prominence over both of these particular communities. So by 431 BP, it was an empire. It covered about 77,000 square miles. You can kind of see their area here. There were 6 to 10 million people in the empire, about 38 tributary states, about 35 strategic provinces, which are kind of like these allied states. But there were some groups that were just never conquered. The Tarascans are one, and the Tlaxcalans are another. Now, how did the Aztec work? It's this big territory. How do you to manage it? Well, one of the things they used was their poteca, or their merchants. They would send the poteca out to establish trading relationships, but at the same time, the poteca were gathering military information. They would bring that back, and then the Aztec would do one of two things. They would sweep in and take it all, or they would try to set up some kind of agreement with the group, like, if you give us this much stuff, we're not going to come in and take everything, and we're not going to take people for sacrifice, and so forth. But again, the Aztec traders worked as kind of spies for the Aztec rulers. They also set up garrison towns. So in the farther regions, the farther away, of course, from the center of power, it's harder to control. So they would set up little military outposts so that they would always have troops ready to kind of sweep into something or to an area if they were kind of getting rowdy. They used tribute as a way to kind of control people. This came in a number of forms. It could have been animal skins, so here you can see jaguar skins, you can see cactus, you can see feathers, you can see, looks like possibly musical instruments, all sorts of stuff that people or groups could send to the Aztec as part of their taxes. And if they didn't pay, there was usually a heavy price. Again, the Aztec armies would come in and take whatever they wanted if the tribute wasn't met. Somewhat like the Zapotec, they also used Zampantli as a way to intimidate people of